sports world. So starting off with some NFL news, 72 NFL players have tested positive for COVID. The league's players union confirmed Thursday. In the first major announcement of coronavirus results concerning the NFL Players Association said dozens of players have tested positive as of July 10th. The tally was revealed in a database described as one-stop shop for information for players. It was unclear, however, how many of the league's roughly 2,900 rostered players have been tested or how often. The test results come as the NFL and the NFLPA are locked in negotiations over the terms and conditions of preseason training and exhibition games. Players have requested more time to address fitness concerns and want no preseason games in August. The sense of uncertainty was underscored Thursday by Houston Texans starter J.J. Watt, who said players remained in the dark over several key details concerning COVID-19's impact on the upcoming season. And now moving on to some NBA news, Milwaukee Bucks point guard Eric Bledsoe had tested positive for COVID-19. He was not joined by his teammate in the NBA's Florida restart bubble. The 30-year-old American in his 10th NBA campaign has averaged 15.4 points, 5.4 assists, and 4.6 rebounds for the Bucks, who were in the NBA best 53-12 when the season was put on hold due to the pandemic. Bledsoe told reporters that he is asymptomatic and feeling fine, adding that he looks forward to joining his teammates in Orlando. The teams are gathering at Disney World in a quarantine environment. The NBA plans to resume the season July 30th with no spectators at these games. The league hopes to decide an NBA champion in early October. So Milwaukee's first scheduled game in the restart is actually July 31st against Boston. The Bucks won their only NBA title in 1971. They reached the Eastern Conference Finals last year for the first time since, of course, my Toronto Raptors, but haven't reached the NBA Finals since 1974. Bledsoe joins a list of top NBA players to test positive that includes Houston Rockets guard Russell Westbrook and Sacramento Kings forward Harrison Barnes. In other news, the Washington Redskins made headlines again, but not for their play on the football field. The Washington Redskins launched an independent investigation on Thursday after 15 female employees alleged that they have been subject to sexual harassment during their time at the club. A Washington Post report said the allegations spanned a 13-year period from 2006 to 2019 and had already led to the departure of 3 team employees in the past week. One of the 15 women, Emily Applegate, told the Post that she had been verbally abused by a former senior executive while being ordered to wear tight-fitting clothes during meetings with the client. Applegate added that the club had been indifferent to complaints from a female employee who alleged that she had been groped by a wealthy suit holder. Applegate, who's 31, was the only victim named by the Post. The 14 other women spoke on the condition of anonymity, citing fear of litigation, as some have signed non-disclosure agreements. In a statement, attorneys said that they would conduct a thorough independent review of this entire matter and help the team set new employee standards for the future. The Post report identified 2 of the recently let-go Redskin employees as Larry Michael, the team's long-serving in-house radio commentator, and Alex Santos, the director of pro personnel. Applegate described her time with the Redskins as the most miserable experience of my life, and said that the behavior was tolerated because of the threat of losing the jobs if they complained. Team owner Dan Snyder was not among those executives accused of inappropriate behavior. The allegations come 2 years after the Redskins were accused of exploiting the team's cheerleading squad. Before we continue, we'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll talk with our panel about the state of the sports during this very interesting time. We'll be right back.
Matinding salpukan ng magagaling ang hindi dapat palampasin ngayong weekend.
angas nyo, grabe kayo.
Hangang-hanga na talaga ako sa'yo.
This is what you call tagisan ng galing. Ito na yon.
Sino-sino ang bubuo sa Final 5 na makakasama sa Grand Finale? Abangan yan dito lang sa Tagisan ng Galing, the Semi-Finals.
Tagisan ng Galing is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sandig sugar-free white coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Veg-approved Nutrichos, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa Nutrichos. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. Pure Foods Lunch and Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang Pure Foods Tender Juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cooper, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee, masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. In participation with Philippine National Bank, masasandalan ng pamilyang Pilipino saan man sa mundo. PNB, you first. Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, Matinco. R Square Vargos Incorporated, Compizel Enterprises, Saisho International Trading Corporation, DN Steel, EMAC UPB Roof Corporation. East West Bank, your dream, our focus.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved Nutrichunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa Nutrichunks.
Star Tollway is a 41.9-kilometer highway that stretches out from Santo Tomas, Batangas all the way to Batangas City. An important component of the company's portfolio, the NAIA Expressway project is a 5.4-kilometer elevated expressway that connects the Skyway system to NAIA Airport terminals and the entertainment city. SMC Infrastructure's ventures also include other projects aside from the toll road business.
Hey, Gretchen Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
Ikaw lang ang star ng buhay ko. Para sa akin, perfect ka. Ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Pag Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, sarap ng corned beef, inangat pa ng real cheese cubes. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef.
Welcome back, sports fans. I'm your host, Rita Sessi, reporting from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Thanks for staying with us. So earlier, we reported on a story about the Washington Redskins, and they actually made headlines once again with regards to their name. So with recent social unrest in the United States due to the death of George Floyd, an African-American male, while under police custody, racial issues have come to the forefront again. For years, many have called for a change in their name, as many see it offensive. So before we get into our discussion with our panel, let's see what some of their fans had to say about this.
it'll be a smart thing just to do, just to pay respect to the people who are offended by it. You know, Redskins, you know, the name is derogatory. Of course, back then they wanted to change it and didn't, but I think way times are going on right now. I think it'd be smart just to, you know, change the name to respect the people who are offended by it.
I think the Redskins name is offensive. I think Redskins have a few issues. I think it starts with the name change, but I can see it as.
So I'm going to go to you, Mike, for this question. So after 87 years of donning a name like this, do you think this change was inevitable? And do you think that we're going to see more and more teams follow suit?
In the words of LeBron James, it's about time. Man, guys, I mean, I don't know why it has taken so many years for this to get done. And the scary thing is that how much longer would it have taken if the George Floyd situation didn't happen, right? You know, according to a poll that I was researching, it was done last year, 67% of the Native American population did not agree, not only with the Washington Redskins name, but also the other names being used in major sports. So to answer your question, yes, I think it is inevitable, especially during the times that we live in right now. I think it is pretty ridiculous that a franchise would even think about naming their teams this names, especially with the history that's involved and attached to these names. So at the end of the day, I think they're making a good move by listening to the masses, by changing their names. I know there's a lot that are floating around that are pretty good options. But I hope that this is going to be a domino effect for all the other teams in the major sports and change their names as well.
As far as name, I would go with definitely the Red Wolves, which I think is gaining a lot of traction on social media. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but some of these logos are really cool. Like, I think the R is like a wolf at the top, and then like it like the bottom of the R is like the wolf's claw. Very cool to see on Instagram. But as far and they get to keep you know, their team slogan, HTTR, which is hail to, in this case, the Red Wolves.
Do you know where they got? Do you know where they got the Red Wolves from? The name, or do you know where
they're throwing that out? I mean, there's like there's 4 or 5 of them that are like extremely popular right now, right? So there's Red Wolves, there's Red Hawks, there's Red Tails, which is after I think the first African American Air Force team, right? In World War II, which is really cool. And they also have the same color scheme, so that would be extremely cool. And they also get to keep HTTR. So, but if a little on the lighter side, on the lighter note, if I had a couple suggestions, I would go with the restaurant that has my favorite fries, the Washington Red Robins, or the bakery that has my favorite chicken empanada, the Washington Red Ribbons. I think those would be great suggestions.
Red Robin, wow.
Yeah, would I be taken seriously? Probably not. But
the home of the bonsai burger.
So, Aiden, what do you think about this? I know, you know, up here in Toronto, it might not be a huge NFL city, but what do you think about the news coming out of this?
I agree. It's decades way too late. They should have changed them by now. We see teams like the Braves, the Indians, Chiefs, and the Blackhawks. They still haven't updated their name, and it's sad that it took the death of George Floyd and all of this being put to the forefront and all the racial inequality, not only in the U.S., but in Canada as well, for them to realize that now it's time to make a change. I'm glad that finally it's happening. Like, we see the Edmonton Eskimos, the CFL team, finally making that change. It's really good to see teams actually considering these people that have been discriminated against for so long.
No, yeah, for sure. So with all this change, of course, people are saying there's going to be huge financial implications because you're essentially rebranding an entire franchise. So I'm going to throw it out to you guys. Do you think that that's true? Do you think it's worth the price? Like, what are we looking at here?
Absolutely, it's worth the price. And the fact that, I mean, the amount of merch sales that they would get right off the bat, You have a new logo, whatever it may be. I'm pitching Red Wolves. And then, everyone, even people that aren't fans of the team, including myself, I live here in the DC area. So I'd get a Red Wolves shirt to rep the new look Washington team. And so even though I'm a Rams fan, and so just on merch sales alone, you definitely get a good bump in the revenue. And on top of that, FedEx Field, who owns the field where the Washington team plays right now, they were the ones that requested this team change. That would have been a huge bump if they were against it, because the name of the team is on the field itself. So the fact that the field is the owners of the field are asking for the change and being proactive about it, that's good news for this team.
Yes, so it was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, yeah, I definitely agree. I think, with this franchise being worth billions, I think it's a drop in a bucket. So I think, the sacrifice is definitely worth it, especially being one of the lead sports organizations in the city. And I think with any great leadership group, empathy is always the number one thing. So being able to just really please the masses when it comes to this, I think the financial sacrifice is worth it.
So,
can I just real quick give respect to the fans? I just got to give a shout out to the fans of this team because they have been through some very tough times, right? I mean, this team is literally the run-of-the-mill average team. Their record overall is 603 to 603 wins and losses. So they are literally in the middle. But last year they finished their season 3-13. This is a bad team. They got a new coach, Ron Rivera. I mean, the guy, has a lot of experience, so I'm looking forward to that. But at the same time, too, you reported this earlier. There's these sexual harassment allegations, and then on top of that, their owner has been called out to sell the team. So the fans have gone through a lot. Living here in the DMV area for about 2 years now, I hear their pain and I feel their pain. I'm just glad I'm not a fan of this team because I would be a depressed person.
So like you mentioned, Ken, there is call for action towards the owner. And I was reading that even back in 2013, he refused to change the name. Regardless of what was happening, he refused to do it. And it was reported that even he would rather sell the team before changing the name. So what is it about the specific situation that you think forced them to do it? Do you think it was the recent social movement, or do you think it was
absolutely?
Absolutely.
These guys, both Adrian and Mike said it, because of the current climate of not just our country but of our world, there is no better time for a change. And this, everyone is literally stuck at home. So all the people can do is just look at social media and see all these things that have been gross atrocities. I'm not saying that this is a huge gross atrocity, but at the end of the day, it's still painful. And so a change is necessary, and it's one of those things where better late than never. And on a side note, Dan Snyder actually trademarked the team, the name Washington Warriors, which is another suggestion that is gaining popularity. That kind of goes in the same element of Native Americans. He trademarked this in 2000 for arena football. However, that never popped up, so he might be able to use that. I don't know why he hasn't suggested that or pitched it as far as a name change, but who knows?
No, for sure. Yeah. So it's just a matter of time before we find out what their actual new name is. So moving on to another sport that's actually changing their ways of doing things. So now we're moving on to college basketball in the United States. So it's National associations of basketball coaches are calling for an overhaul in their eligibility process. So as of right now, any athlete coming out of high school who is applying for Division 1 or 2 schools must score a certain result for their SAT and ACT results to be considered. However, in light of COVID, this was recently waived for the upcoming school year. But a new committee that came out of the EBC, who's dedicated to racial reconciliation, proposed that such process be removed completely, as they see SAT and ACT scores as forces of institutional racism and no longer have a place in intercollegiate athletics and higher education at large. So Ken, I'm going to throw this over to you. How much do you think the academic piece should be considered when looking at athletes, specifically athletes for NCAA?
You know, I have to say this, and I don't feel that the core reason for having academic requirements is necessarily racist, because at the end of the day, a lot of these high-level athletes, no matter your color, are kind of pampered, you know, growing up, whether they're in middle school and high school, right? They are told, hey, focus on the sports so that you can get to the college that you want to go to, and we'll take care of the grades. We'll sweep those under the rug. It's happened so many times where a lot of these athletes, they don't focus at all on their education. So like they can't even pass, you know, the bare minimum SAT score for like even like a lower, not lower end, but like a college that requires a small score. However, what I can say as far as like academics, I mean, especially like some of these like, you know, prestigious Ivy League schools, when you're a school, you know, you're only as good as your name. And I feel like if any student that goes to the school, to whatever school it is, has to at least meet the bare minimum of whatever it is required for that school. And so if an athlete, no matter what their skill is, doesn't meet those requirements, I mean, SAT and ACT, those are, you know, like I personally don't like those, but I mean, if that's what they need, then that's what they need. However, I feel like, you know, as a school, you have the right to have a bare minimum requirement for any student to be there. However, one last thing I want to say is on the other side of that, money talks, right? And so at the end of the day, if you have these high profile athletes and you can't get them into your school because they can't pass the test or can't make the minimum requirements, then you're not going to be able to sell the jerseys, sell the merch, and you know, they'll go to the other schools who will take them for, you know, their, you know, bypassing those bare minimum things, and then they'll get that money and prestige for those programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was gonna add on to that. You know, I totally agree with Ken. I don't think that these tests are necessarily racist in any way. And I also think that the ACT and the SAT is never going to be indicative on how smart somebody is.
Right.
Just because somebody is going to score, it's been years since I took it, but I believe when I was in high school, it was like 1,600 was like the highest score. Just because someone who gets a 1,500 on the SAT doesn't necessarily mean that they're smarter than someone who gets say a 600 or 700 on it. And I think that, you know, as far as enrolling someone into a school, I think they need to look at the overall application process as opposed to simply the SAT and ACT score. You know, you have other extracurricular activities. You have other classes that people take that they thrive in. And I think looking at the whole picture, especially not just for the high-profile athletes, but I'm talking about, you know, the baseball players, you know, the golfers, the people that aren't, you know, as famous as, you know, say the football players or the basketball players, but those people that are still on the fence as far as getting into these high echelon schools. I think it's a good move that they do remove these tests because, again, you know, I've taken the test. I know Ken's probably taken the test as well. You know, some of these questions are just laughable because, like, I'm never going to use this ever in my entire life. Like, a lot of it's like, I'm never going to face this situation ever. So it's like, is this really testing my acumen when it comes to education? So I think it's a good move. You know, I just love the fact that these schools are embracing ideas of really just looking at these athletes more as well-rounded people, as opposed to just really putting them into a box, saying, "Oh, okay, just because they have a 1,000 SAT score, we're going to let them in." So
that's what I'm curious about. So if they remove the SAT and ACT scores from the whole application process, what will be the new standard? I had read somewhere that maybe Black history will be introduced into the curriculum. I think that's a good step towards learning about the different minorities and different groups that have kind of been targeted, that feel targeted in this case. I just think having a plan in place rather than just removing the SATs and not having a plan, that might be troublesome. So we need to see a little more progress in that regard.
No, yeah, for sure. And we'll see how they compete as well with the NBA's professional path too, right? So before we continue on with any further discussion, we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us.
Matinding salpukan ng magagaling ang hindi dapat palampasin ngayong weekend.
Angas nyo, grabe kayo.
Hangang-hanga na talaga ako sa'yo.
This is what you call tagisan ng galing. Ito na yon.
Sino-sino ang bubuo sa Final 5 na makakasama sa Grand Finale? Abangan yan dito lang sa Tagisan ng Galing, the Semi-Finals.
Tagisan ng Galing is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sanmig sugar-free white coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sanmig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vetaproof Nutrichunks, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo, ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa Nutrichunks. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. Pure Foods Lunch and Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang Pure Foods Tender Juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cooper, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee, masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. In participation with Philippine National Bank, masasandalan ng pamilyang Pilipino saan man sa mundo. PNB, you first. Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, Matimco. R Square Variables Incorporated, Compizel Enterprises, Saisho International Trading Corporation, Dian Steel, EMAC UPB Roof Corporation. East West Bank, your dream, our focus.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved Nutrichunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa Nutrichunks.
To date, SMC Infrastructure remains at the forefront of Boracay Airport's modernization. The current and long-term developments include the construction of an international airport passenger terminal and the extension of the existing runway to better serve bigger aircrafts, providing tourists with world-class access to this slice of paradise.
Hey, Gretchen Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, San-May sugar-free white coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! San-May sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
Bakit natin ipinagluluto ang mga mahal natin? We want them to feel special. Sa meaty luncheon meat that we serve. If your pure intentions had a taste, it would taste like Pure Foods. Pure sarap, Pure Foods luncheon meat.
Welcome back to EBC Sports International. I'm your host, Zarita Sese, reporting from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So on to our next topic. With the new NBA normal in the Disney bubble, players from all over the league have been having to adjust to their new routine. We all know that athletes, regardless of what their sport is very regimented, and routine is everything. So it's been reported that LeBron James of the Los Angeles Lakers did not bring his personal chef and his security team. So Adian, are we underestimating these subtle changes, well, to us, subtle changes, and do you think that it'll affect LeBron James' performance, or any athlete for that matter who had to make a sacrifice like that?
Absolutely, yes. These players are so used to routine in their lives, how they practice, how they eat, how they take naps, when they practice. A lot of it comes down to routine, and you throw them out of it, you're not going to be the same player. But the beautiful thing about it is everybody's on the same playing field. Now, I wonder, you mentioned LeBron James. He's a superstar in the league. Will he get any kind of superstar treatment? Will he get maybe nicer meals that other players can't get? Like, I saw Damian Lillard, he got the president's suite over all of the other Portland Trail Blazers. So is this something that we're not hearing about? I wonder. I just think that it's nice that they're all on the level playing field. We'll see how that affects each player. Obviously, they're without their family, they're without their regular routine. Who really knows who will be impacted by it more, you know?
Yeah, like you hear these baseball players, right? More so on like when it comes to routine, like they do the same things, they wear the same like dirty socks, chew the same gum for like 3 hours at a time. I mean, like the basketball players are the same. I mean, you know, we've seen this covering them firsthand. They literally wake up at the same time every day. They have the same conversations, the same team huddles, all that stuff. So when even like the smallest thing, and this isn't even a small thing, this is your diet and this is your security team. We've seen how important a security team is, especially when it comes to when watching The Last Stand. Remember, there was an entire episode, well, half an episode based on Michael Jordan's security team and how that helped him in his performance, right? But I mean, one thing I did want to bring up that's a huge X factor is that no one has a home game advantage here. There's no fans, right? One, and two, everyone is playing in this like conference room, this huge conference room, and so at the end of the day, like you're in a situation that's foreign to everyone, and I think that's going to affect every single player and teams, because a lot of these players, you even see it on statistics, right? There are players that play only, remarkably better when they're at home versus away, and there's players that play extremely, on another level when they're away from home. And so, I will be very curious, and we're only a few days away. Very curious to see how this affects everyone, because everyone, as you said, Adian, is on the same level playing field, and so it's at least going to be very entertaining for all of us as fans to watch.
Yeah, absolutely, and I do give LeBron kudos because he could have easily brought his barber or not his barber, but his security and his chef, and maybe his barber as well.
Probably his barber should have played.
Yeah, I'll be his barber. Why not? But he could have easily brought him. But I think because he wants to create some type of cohesiveness with his teammates, and be on on the same playing field as his teammates. I give him kudos for that, definitely. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I think at the end of the day, these athletes they have routines. It's going to be interesting to see how they adjust to that. It definitely has like an AAU sort of feel to it, and that they're going to be away from home. They're going to be eating like cafeteria food. Well, not that bad of food, but food that's from the place. And there's going to be so many moving parts to this thing, and it's going to be really cool to see who's going to really tough it out, who's going to maintain the mental toughness throughout the tournament, and see who comes out on top.
Just sticking with the food theme, we've seen it all on social media, kind of the criticism that Disney's getting for the lack of quality of food. Do you guys think it's fair for players to come out on a platform like social media and openly criticize what they're getting when a lot of people are like, well, you guys are getting a lot more than what an average person would get? Do you think it's fair for them to be that critical?
Yeah, I think it's they should just not say anything. I mean, a lot of these guys grew up probably eating worse. I mean, so these guys complaining when they're making $20-30 million a year is pretty laughable. I mean, I don't feel sorry for them. Who are I even forgot who even posted the first picture. I think he plays for the Mavericks, something to that effect. But yeah, it is funny. But at the end of the day, you have so many people that are struggling to get food, especially right now, the ones that are unemployed and struggling to keep their jobs. And so I think, they should just be grateful for the position that they're in.
It's definitely
they're not going to be eating that type of food the whole time. After like 2 weeks, once the quarantine is over, I think it goes to some like the higher tier restaurants, all owned by Tillman Fertitta, the owner of the Rockets. They're going to get better quality food, better quality products sent to them. I just think it's a matter of time once the quarantine is over for them.
Well, what I'm curious with is, they didn't bring their barbers, their chefs, their security team, but did they not bring their PR team? Because this is a horrible look for all these guys that are complaining, right? I mean, like, they should at least be like, I know a bunch of these guys are on like IG and Facebook Live and really exposing. It's great for fans to see, but I mean, it's also like, as Mike said, it's extremely disrespectful, especially with how the world is going right now. I mean, so many people are in a spot where they don't know where the next meal is, and these guys have like at least like 4 or 5 meals a day. It's not like the juiciest chicken, but it's still chicken, right? I mean, and it's presented to your door. You didn't have to leave your room.
And I saw, and there's, I mean, it's not food related, but Rajon Rondo, he took like an IG story of his hotel room saying it looks like a Motel 6. I'm like, bro, it's like a two bedroom suite, bro. Like, come on, man.
And then he breaks his finger 2 days later, right?
Hey, so karma, man.
So yeah, we'll see in a couple of weeks how these players kind of cope with their new situation. But moving on to a recent report by ESPN, who broke down who they believe will shine within the Disney bubble with their 50 best players in Orlando. So no surprise, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Kawhi Leonard round up the top 3, and we can nitpick the entire list, but just looking at top 10, I'll go to you, Mike. Do you agree with the list? Do you feel anyone should be replaced, anyone snubbed? What are your thoughts?
Well, focusing on the top 10, I think, first of all, I think Kawhi should be number 2. I think beating Giannis in the Eastern Conference last year carries over to this year, just in my book. And I think because he has he's just one of the top echelon players. So in my book, I think it should be LeBron 1, Kawhi 2, Giannis 3. I also think that Lillard was rated way too low. He should definitely be at 6 instead of Embiid. I don't even know why Embiid is there in the top 10. Lillard should be 6, and I say that because he's, I think, in my opinion, probably the most underrated player in the NBA. He's by far the best player on the Portland Trail Blazers, led them to the Western Conference Finals last year. So he's definitely one of the best guards in the NBA to this day. And also, I also thought that Tatum was ranked a little too low as well. And I put him at number 9 instead of Jokic. But as far as the rest of the top 10, I have no issue with it.
Yeah, I think Embiid at 6 is a huge reach, just like you said. I mean, yeah, like this time off is great for him and his fragile body, but at the same time too, he's like notorious for being out of shape. So I feel like he's gonna have a difficult time coming back and getting into game shape right away. I mean, like everyone else is, but like the guy eats like 5,000 calories like a sitting. I mean. I feel like he's going to have a challenge, and so putting him at number 6 on this like pandemic list is not a great look. And then also, I think Westbrook at 12 is highly underrated, and I think that's extremely low for him. The guy averaged almost 33 points since the start of the year. So I mean, he's got his feelers in Houston, and so I think he should be in the top 10. Jokic, I think, is an X factor because of the fact that we spoke about this. He lost 50 pounds. So, I mean, the guy could be coming back nice and sprightly, fast. I mean, a fast Jokic is scary because a slow Jokic is already scary. So, we'll see.
The only point I'll disagree with is Paul George being too high. I just don't think he has a big enough body of work this season to really say that he's a top 8 player in this league right now, and he's a top 8 most important in this playoffs. I agree, you got to bump up Damian Lillard, but he's not in the playoff race. He's not in a playoff spot right now. And you can also look at guys like John Morant, Zion Williams, 2 rookies who've had a huge impact, who could easily crack the top 20. Joel Embiid, on the other hand, I have to disagree with. At his best, he can be one of the best players in the league. Maybe a top 5. Maybe he's right. He's right at the 6th spot. He's just too important, and I love that Philadelphia team. Maybe that's why I'm saying it. I just think he could carry them to a lot higher if he can reach to his potential and be consistent with his play.
Yeah, it's a big if Embiid can keep that up. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was going to say, I am surprised Zion wasn't ranked number 3 on this list, or even number 1, because of how the NBA has been catering to him these past several weeks. So just wanted to put that in there.
Conspiracy.
Breaking news here. So outside of the individuals, which teams do you guys think actually benefited from the new structure? I think, Ken, you touched on it quickly earlier when you said there's no home court advantage at this point. So what teams do you actually think will excel in this new setting and with the time off to kind of get their team healthy?
100% Lakers. I mean, Lakers needed this the most. And other than this Rondo injury and obviously not having Avery Bradley, a banged up Anthony Davis, having 5 months to rest, and then also LeBron James having all these months to rest. That is key for having your veterans, your all-stars, your superstars well rested. He's ranked number 1 on that list for a reason, and AD at number 5, right? These guys are killer. With or without rest, but with rest, it's they're next level. They're the best duo in the NBA.
Go ahead, Eddie.
You have to look across the league and see who the older players are and which teams face the most injuries throughout the season. I think if you look at a team like the Raptors, they've had a player injured every month of the season, pretty much, a key player in their starting lineup. I think if they get fully healthy, they could be a force. I mean, they're proving that they are a force with the 3rd best record in the league right now. I just think fans across the entire league will take them a little more seriously once they see that they're at their full potential. And then think about players like LeBron James. Of course, he's going to have enough rest. He's going to come back strong. But even players like, let me think here. one of the older guys like Paul George. He's been having an injury-riddled season. He's 30 plus and he's in his prime, but he's gonna really improve because of all of this rest he's had. Another guy would be Russell Westbrook. Give him some rest. He's gonna come at you like an animal.
Yeah, totally agree, man. You know, and to stick with Paul George, I think in my book, definitely the Clippers. I think they're by far the deepest team in NBA, and also has the best coach. I think the rest is definitely going to help them, especially for Kawhi, because I know he had some issues with his knees. But there are two teams that I'm very excited to see how they're going to respond. One is the Miami Heat, especially with Iguodala being added to the mix. And then also the Dallas Mavericks going to be – those two teams are definitely the dark horses. So one from the East, one from the West, those guys. But number one for me, Clippers.
Well, your Clippers, on that topic, with Montrez leaving, when he comes back, that's potentially, at least 2 weeks off. So that's, they should be starting at that time. I think that's a huge hit to the Clippers. I mean, Rondo and Bradley are on the Lakers is a big hit not playing, but Montrez is literally the heart and soul of that Clippers team. So I think him not being there is going to affect him dearly.
No, for sure. I think we're just all eagerly waiting for basketball to start up again so we can test all of our theories. So don't go anywhere. We're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
Matinding salpukan ng magagaling ang hindi dapat palampasin ngayong weekend.
Ang angas nyo, grabe kayo.
Hangang-hanga na talaga ako sa'yo.
This is what you call tagisan ng galing. Ito na yon.
Sino-sino ang bubuo sa Final 5 na makakasama sa Grand Finale? Abangan yan dito lang sa Tagisan ng Galing, the Semi-Finals.
Tagisan ng Galing is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sanmig sugar-free white coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sanmig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vet-approved NutriChocs, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo, ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa NutriChocs. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. Pure Foods Luncheon Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na number 1 ang Pure Foods Tender Juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cooper, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Ulan Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee, masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. In participation with Philippine National Bank, masasandalan ng pamilyang Pilipino saan man sa mundo. PNB, you first. Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, Matimco. R Square Variables Incorporated, Compizel Enterprises, Saisho International Trading Corporation, DN Steel, EMAC UPB Roof Corporation. East West Bank, your dream, our focus.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved NutriChocs with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa NutriChocs.
The Metro Rail Transit 7, or MRT-7, is a planned rail and road project from North Avenue, Quezon City to San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, with 14 stations, which can service 650,000 passengers daily. And very soon, the construction of the new Manila International Airport in Bulacan, Bulacan is expected to accommodate 100 million passengers annually and promises to be another significant contribution to progress in the Philippines.
Hey, Aggression Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
Ikaw lang ang star ng buhay ko. Para sa akin, perfect ka. Ibang klase ang sarap ng corned beef mo. Ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Pag Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, sarap ng corned beef, inangat pa ng real cheese cubes. Kaya perfect ang sarap. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef.
Welcome back to EBC Sports International. I'm Zarita Sese. Thanks for sticking with us. So before the break, we discussed players and teams that we expect to thrive in the new NBA, but we now know that how teams perform in this actual bubble won't matter anymore when it comes to the NBA awards. So the Associated Press reported that only games played up until March 11th, which is when they paused the season, will be taken into consideration for voting. So with that in mind, the panel is going to give who they think should win the various awards. So it's Most Valuable Player, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Sixth Man. So I'll start with you, Adian. Let's hear your ballot for this for these awards.
I think mine's pretty straightforward. Most people are going to agree. MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks. Rookie of the Year. As much as I love Zion, and I think he's the better player, and he will be the better player overall, I gotta go with Ja Morant. He just played more games. Defensive Player of the Year, it's gonna be Giannis again. He's gonna join the likes of Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon as the only two players to get MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year award in the same season. And Sixth Man, this one's kind of a toss-up, but I'm gonna have to go with Ken, your guy, Montrezl Harrell.
Oh, that's not my guy.
Yeah, that's his guy. That's his guy. That's his guy. He just doesn't want to.
That's the opposite of my guy.
Okay, let's hear your ballot then.
Sure. All right. Well, I wanted to be extremely biased, but I did my best not to. MVP has to be Giannis, just with his body of work up until the stoppage. The guy's, he got better than he was last year. I mean, yeah, you have to give him some slack for you have to get on him for not beating the Raptors last year. But I mean, this year he came in hungry, angry, and really, really wanting it, and it showed in his game even better than what LeBron has put out on the field. Rookie of the Year, just by an amount of games, Ja Morant. Well deserved, by the way. And then Defensive Player of the Year, Anthony Davis. I would, when he's on the court, the guy is absolutely a beast to go against. So I think you got to give him that. And like he said, he wanted that award, and I think he deserves it. Sixth Man, I know this one's kind of a dark horse, but I think it's Dennis Schroeder. 19 points, 4 assists, almost 4 rebounds a game for the Thunder. He is an integral piece of that team, especially with Chris Paul, being a little older. Him taking those bench minutes it's essential for and they are actually probably the biggest surprise for me as an NBA team, and it's led by their general CP3, and one that we didn't mention on this list. My coach of the year has to be Frank Vogel, guys, just because it's the Lakers, and we're number one in the West.
How are you not going to give it to Nick Nurse?
I know. How do you deny Nick Nurse of that?
Nick Nurse.
It's not last year, guys.
Can cry on his championship trophy. That's it.
Mike, what about you?
So I'm going to go ahead and go against the grain here. MVP, I have LeBron, actually. I think him leading the league in assists at 6'9" is absolutely incredible. I think the last person to do that was Magic, probably. Leading the league in assists, 10.6 assists a game. Say that again?
In his 17th year.
Yeah, in the 17th year. For me, just based on the eye test, I think he's just a better overall player than Giannis is. That's just me, of course. And then with Rookie of the Year, John Morant, no explanation there. Defensive Player of the Year, I have Giannis there because one staggering stat that I saw was that he's held anybody that he's guarded he's held them to 42% shooting, which is I think that's huge. And sixth man. As much as I wanted to vote Lou Williams, I mean, it'd be his third year in a row winning it. So I'd have to agree with Ken with Dennis Schroeder. I think he's had an incredible year with the Thunder, especially playing alongside of CP3. And Coach of the Year, I'm going Doc Rivers, Clippers.
Of course you would.
Disgusting.
Adrian, I didn't get your Coach of the Year. Was that pretty much a sign-off that you're giving it to Nick Nurse?
It's an obvious sign-off that it's Nick Nurse. Come on now. The injuries he had to deal with, third best record in the league. You lose Kawhi Leonard. This is a no-brainer, guys. Come on.
They're going to get bounced in the
Trust
first
me,
round.
Adrian, I've been through this. Trying to convince these guys to love the Raptors is hard.
Zarita, tell me who you got.
For me,
How about you, Zarita?
it sounds a lot like yours. For my MVP, it hurts me to say this, but I'm actually going to say LeBron James. Like you guys said, his 17th year doing what he's doing now and what he's projected to do. I know the 8 games won't mean anything, but for me, MVP for sure. Rookie of the Year, you guys know I stand John Morant, so John Morant for sure. Defensive Player of the Year, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And sixth man, I'm going to be so biased and say actually Fred VanVleet for me. I don't know if you guys watch Fred. Yeah, I'm going to say it, okay? I put Fred VanVleet in there.
He showed up last year, but I don't know, man. The other guys, he's like 5th or 6th on my 6-man list. He's the sixth man on my list.
I just want to mention. Go ahead. Go finish.
Well, what I wanted to say is that what I'm wondering is that if since they announced that these awards are based on earlier in the season, I wonder if that'll affect playing time of any of the players, specifically LeBron James. Will he not play all the games or play a limited amount of minutes, knowing that it's not going to affect the running for MVP? I don't know.
Gotcha. That's a good point. But I mean, I just want to mention something real quick, 10 seconds, that, when it comes to the MVP, I like to visualize if the person was not on the team. I think that if LeBron wasn't on the Lakers right now, like if he was playing with somebody else, this guy would get bounced out. If you take Giannis off the Bucks, I still think they'd be a pretty good team, especially with Middleton there. So just something to think about.
Hot take.
Wait, are we forgetting about somebody named Anthony Davis?
Yeah, but what has he done? I mean, what did he do with the Pelicans? He didn't do anything there. But,
what did anybody do on the Bucks aside from Giannis?
Touche. So before a real fight starts, before we end our show, let's go to one of our fun questions. So to put it out there, if you could be any professional sports team owner, who would you be and what team would you want to own and why? For me, I'll go first. I'm going to say the owners of the Yankees, the Steinbrenner family, just because it's the Yankees. Baseball money's crazy money, so I think owning the Yankees and being that family would be, I'd be set for life. So what about you guys? Let's start with you, Adrian.
My heart says the Toronto Raptors for obvious reasons. But if I'm going to go with my brain, you want to go with the most winningest team in professional sports history. That's the New York Yankees. Not to steal your answer, but it's just the point of sports is to win. They've won the most. It's an obvious answer for me.
Mike, who would you want to be?
As far as owners go, I'll go with Steve Ballmer because he awesome attitude, owns the best team in Los Angeles, and the team that I would own are the Seahawks. My dream is always to own the Seahawks, so maybe one of these days I'll be able to do it.
Well, if you became Steve Ballmer, you'd have to load up on your deodorant, Mike, because your perspiration would be through the roof.
Hey, man. Still a billionaire.
Developers.
He always looks like he's stressing out.
I mean, I can't hate on the man for his support. But speaking of support, for me, gold standard of owners, other than obviously the late Jerry Buss, who I think was the gold standard of owners. Everyone loved the dude, and he took care of his players, including Kobe Bryant. Has to be Mark Cuban. I mean, the dude's a diehard Mavs fan. The team he owns, he's always there courtside, pretty much every home game. A lot of times, the players are complaining the amount of trash he talks, and that's that's amazing for me. He's a ride or die, owner for his team. He makes sure that his facilities are state of the art. He takes care of his staff, and so that's reciprocated by the players. They love the dude, and then on top of that, he's one of the main investors for Shark Tank. I mean, the guy is just a winner. I mean, he went from rags, middle class to riches, literally, right? So I think when he was 12, he sold I forgot, he sold like plastic something to get to pay for shoes. So he's a born businessman, and the fruits of his labors are they literally show.
No, for sure. If only we could be those guys, the things we could do. So that's actually all the time that we have for this week's episode. So on behalf of everyone on the panel, thank you for joining us, and be sure to tune in next week for a new episode. And also make sure to visit our website at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenewsph to join the conversation. I'm Zarita Sese. We live in interesting times.